Hello, wonderful people. Well, Chapter 10, the final chapter review. But, of course, we have other things going on in the class to include final projects, final exams. So we have a lot going on. But I hope you enjoyed the textbook. I thought it was a really well-written, to the point, precise textbook, which I found to be something that was uh, exactly what I was looking for. I didn't want to have to, what's the words I want to use? I didn't want to have you going over too much material you've already covered in a lot of other classes. I was looking for material that was fresh and that stayed with the topic for the most part. So hopefully you feel the same way. If not, though, I would enjoy your comments. Let me know what you thought about the class, of course, but also the class textbook when you do your reviews. All right, let's wrap up Chapter 10. Let's see here from my notes. This was on what? Entrepreneurship. So you're definitely getting near and dear to my heart. I'd like to refer to when you're looking at in big businesses, and a better term would be maybe entrepreneurship. But for the sake of argument, we'll stay with the term entrepreneurship. Research indicates, according to your textbook, research indicates that firms acquiring innovation introduce fewer new products into the marketplace. Again, your text highlights the dangers of relying heavily on acquisitions as a means of innovation. So, a firm pursuing innovation through acquisition needs to put an emphasis on maintaining internal research and development investments. Sound R&D, strong R&D throughout, even after the acquisitions have been made. In order, in order, of course, to create additional value. All right, moving on. Cooperating to innovate has risk, where one firm might steal a partner's knowledge with the intention of improving its own competitive ability. We've talked about this, ways of protecting yourself as much as possible through contracts, as much as possible through vetting your potential partners to see if they have a history of doing just that, where they steal a partner's knowledge. So you have to do your homework. Yes, there is risk involved, but you can limit the risk by doing your due diligence, which, if you remember from an earlier chapter, is something that is sagacious for executives when they're putting together their strategic management plans. All right, let's see what else my notes have for me here. Dealing with Chapter 10. Oh, a question for you to kind of prepare you for the upcoming exam. Hopefully this will be a good big help to you. A redesign, this again is an example, a redesign of the bike tire, of a bicycle tire. So a redesign of a bicycle tire to make the tire more resistant, obviously, to flats. Resistant to flats would be a blank innovation. Would this be a radical innovation, organic innovation, um, breakthrough innovation, or last but not least, an incremental innovation? So, as we've been doing throughout the semester, let me know through your feedback on what you selected and why. And let's use Facebook or using some type of a medium, whether it be email or the old standby telephone can even work. Okay, what else do I want to touch on here? 3 ways to innovate was mentioned in your textbook. It talked about the internal innovation. This is where you're using a firm's, or a firm is using its own resources and capabilities when it comes to innovating. Cooperating innovation, or to innovate. 2 or more firms forming an agreement to join some of their resources and capabilities to innovate. And last but not least, the third category that was identified was acquiring innovation, which we just had in our last example question there. Acquiring innovation, where you're buying ownership of another firm's innovation and innovative capabilities. We went over that at the very beginning. We talked about acquiring innovation there. Okay, example. Another example here. The destruction of business due to a natural disaster, true or false? This, for an entrepreneur, would be an entrepreneurial opportunity, at least for some firms. Why would that be an entrepreneurial opportunity? Well, I talk to my students in my small business management class and in my entrepreneurship class, and I ask them, I say, listen, what would happen here in being in Fairbanks? They have flirted, they being the military, have flirted with the idea of closing the Air Force Base. And then, they changed their mind. But again, it's been on the chopping block as a possible base closing. And I asked my students, I said, well, what would happen? Would it be the end of the Fairbanks community? I mean, what would happen? And there was lots of great discussion. But then when I pointed to the research, and the research shows that oftentimes, virtually every time, when a base closure is taking place, there's been a resurgence of entrepreneurial activity and a resurgence of small businesses popping up and filling the void that was created once the base had closed to help out with the community. So, yes, there are the cases where, of course, the few and far in between where the town did suffer greatly, but for the most part, due diligence has research has shown that the towns usually do really well, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, small business. Here we're talking about entrepreneurship, though, in this text and in this particular class, dealing with in much larger businesses, whether it be corporation or an enterprise. Okay. I believe Walmart was used as an example within your textbook. All right, staying with my notes, your text. Let's see what else I got going on here. All right. An organization-wide reliance on innovation entrepreneurship within established firms is called, what I just went over here the last minute or two, corporate entrepreneurship. So again, an organization-wide reliance on innovation and entrepreneurship within an established firm is called corporate entrepreneurship. Sharing the risk by both parties, sharing the costs of developing the innovation, and sharing the potential profits generated by the innovation are all advantages for parties of strategic alliances concerning innovation. A firm that seeks to encourage innovation must support failure of some innovative products. I know, right? It seems odd, doesn't it? But think about this. If you have a workforce that's afraid to have occasional failure, obviously, I like to call it the Queen of Hearts management style, and it's off with their heads. Well, it's going to make innovation something that is not widely embraced within the organization and doesn't happen on a reoccurring basis. But in a firm that encourages innovation and creativity and understands that with that type of culture, there will be failure from time to time. All right, moving on. After identifying entrepreneurial opportunities, entrepreneurs turn their attention to developing capabilities to create competitive advantages required to make a profit for the firm. Okay? All right. Staying with my questions here. Pardon me. As I clear my throat, get my notes here. Okay, here we go. Bringing it into the home stretch here. Another example question. Which of the following is not a characteristic of an entrepreneur? Again, is not. Is it A, accepting of uncertain outcomes? B, tolerant of ambiguity? C, focused on cost benefit analysis? Or D, willing to take financial responsibility for their projects? So, as usual, I'll ask you to, in an open discussion, let's discuss this. Which do you think is the best answer and why? And to wrap up this particular chapter, which was a real short chapter, but definitely probably my favorite chapter because of my fondness for innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship. The final question dealing with chapter 10. I'm going to have you fill in the blanks. Identifying opportunities is a blank process. Developing the capabilities needed to exploit them is a blank process. Would it be A, entrepreneurial strategic, B, strategic and entrepreneurial, C, creative and administrative, or D, administrative and creative? Make the best selection. Get with me. All right, it's been a pleasure going over the chapters with you. Let me know if you have any questions, and again, be proactive, and I'll be glad to work with you. Let me know when you're answering the questions what was behind your answer, what was, justify and explain your answers. All right, until we chat again, I'm out.